I thought my old car was worth nothing until my mechanic found a cassette tape hidden beneath the back seat. When he played it, I heard my mother's voice say my name, and then she said something that changed everything I knew about my family. I was standing in that garage when the tape clicked on. My hands went cold. My mother had been gone for 11 years. I had spent those years believing I knew why she had kept certain secrets from me. I was wrong. Before I tell you what I heard, if stories about family betrayal and hidden truths pull you in, subscribe to Family Betrayal. It helps me keep these stories coming. And just so you know, the faces, photos, backgrounds, and scenes shown in this video are visual recreations meant only to help imagine the story. The voice on that tape was unmistakable. David, if you're hearing this, something happened that I never had the courage to tell you. I nearly dropped the cassette. My mechanic, Mike, looked at me and asked if he should stop it. I told him no. I needed to hear everything. Then my mother mentioned my father. My stomach tightened. She said, "Your father did not leave us because he wanted another family. I had spent my entire childhood believing he had abandoned us. I remembered hating him for it." But Mom continued, "He left because I made him." I stared at the tape player, unable to breathe normally. Why would my mother lie about the man I had spent my life blaming? Then came the sentence that made me realize the tape was only the beginning. "And David, your brother, knows the truth." I drove home that night without turning on the radio. Every mile felt different because the story I had grown up with was collapsing inside my head. My older brother Mark had always acted protective whenever Dad came up. He used to tell me, "Some men don't deserve to be called fathers." I believed him because Mom never corrected him. But now I couldn't stop wondering what Mark knew. The next morning, I called him and casually asked if he remembered Dad leaving. There was a long silence. Then he said, "Why are you asking me that now?" That answer scared me more than an admission would have. I asked again. He became angry and told me to let the past stay buried. I hung up with my heart pounding. That evening, I listened to the cassette again. Mom explained that years earlier, Dad had discovered that money meant for my medical treatment had disappeared from the family account. She said she had blamed him because she was afraid he would discover where it really went. Then the tape stopped. There was another recording after a few seconds of static. Her voice returned, quieter this time. "Mark took the money. I covered for him." I froze. My brother had always told me Dad abandoned us when I was sick. But according to Mom, Dad had actually tried to stay. He had even begged her to tell me the truth. She refused. I sat alone in my living room, angry at a dead woman and ashamed that I had spent years hating an innocent man. But one question wouldn't leave my mind. If Mom had recorded this confession, why had she hidden the tape inside my car? I didn't understand until I heard the final words. "David, your father may still be alive." For 3 days, I couldn't think about anything else. I searched through old boxes, photographs, letters, anything that might give me a clue. Then I found an envelope tucked behind an old picture of my parents. Inside was a phone number written in my mother's handwriting. Under it were 4 words, "He deserves to know." I called the number expecting it to be disconnected. A man answered. I almost hung up. His voice sounded older, tired, but somehow familiar. I asked, "Is this Robert?" Silence followed. Then he said, "Who is this?" I told him my name. The line went completely quiet. Finally, he whispered, "David." I sat down. My father was alive. We met at a small diner 2 days later. When he walked through the door, I recognized him immediately from the photographs, but seeing him in person was different. He looked at me for several seconds before his eyes filled with tears. He told me he had tried to contact me many times. Mom had returned every letter. She told him I didn't want him in my life. I asked why he never fought harder. He lowered his head and said, "Because she threatened to take you away forever." I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't. I told him about the cassette. He closed his eyes and said Mom had promised to tell me the truth one day. Then he gave me something I never expected, a copy of an old bank statement proving Mark had taken the money. Suddenly, everything made sense. But there was one final page attached to it. It showed that my father had been sending money to me secretly for years. I stared at the amount and realized he had never abandoned me. He had been helping me from a distance. I confronted Mark the next morning. I placed the bank statement on his kitchen table and asked one question. Why? He didn't deny it. He admitted he had taken the money because he was drowning in debt and believed Mom would protect him. She did. Together, they created the story that Dad had abandoned us. Mark cried and said he regretted it. but by then I was too exhausted to feel satisfied. Revenge suddenly seemed small compared with the years we had lost. I told him I could never trust him again, but I also refused to let his mistake destroy the rest of my life. A week later, I brought Dad to my house. We sat at the same table where I had spent countless birthdays believing he didn't care about me. This time he was there. We talked for hours. There were awkward silences, apologies, and memories neither of us could get back. I realized something painful that night. Sometimes the person you blame is not the person who hurt you. Sometimes a family protects a lie for so long that the lie becomes everyone's reality. I still keep that cassette tape. Not because I enjoy remembering the betrayal, but because it reminds me that truth can arrive years late and still change your life. If you were in my position, would you have forgiven your family, confronted them, or walked away forever? I honestly still don't know what the perfect answer is. I only know this. Blood can make people family, but honesty is what makes them worth keeping. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave your answer in the comments. And subscribe to Family Betrayal for more stories where the truth finally finds its way home. Sometimes the truth doesn't erase the past. It simply gives you the courage to stop living inside it.